Hi, my name is Alessio. Gathering Blue takes place in a village that is not as modernized as today's society. Bartering was the main method of getting the materials you needed, and houses were made of wood, built with old techniques, etc. The main character is Kira. She's born with a deformed leg, which makes it hard for her to walk, and her mom recently died. However, she is a fighter and stays composed and strong during these difficult times. She is also very talented and creative at sewing. Matt is a tyke and one of Kira's best friends. Even though many people would avoid Kira because of her lameness, well, her deformed leg, Matt has become a loyal and trustworthy, caring friend of Kira. Thomas is also another friend of Kira, and the two of them share many things in common, as Thomas can make very creative and beautiful carvings out of wood, since he is a talented carpenter. Like how Kira is very talented at sewing, beautiful designs, and incorporating many colors into her art. When Kira's mom, Katrina, dies, Kira is threatened with her ownership of the land. Vendera and some other women in the village want her land to build a pen for the Tykes, while Kira wants to keep the land and build another house on it after her mother's was burned down. That's the conflict of the story. First, when Katrina, who is Kira's mom, dies, Vendera and the other women in the village want to use her land to build a pen for the Tykes, but Kira wants to keep the land so she can build her house there. The argument must be settled in court, and Vendera argues that Kira is a lame and shouldn't be allowed in the village anyway. But Kira argues that she's very good at sewing and can prove very useful for the village. On top of that, she's a strong fighter. With the help of her defendant, Jamison, who she picked, a verdict is reached, and the court decides that Kira will lose the land and the pen for the Tykes will be built. However, Kira can stay in the village in the edifice, where she will use her skills as a talented sewer and repair the singer's robe. She agrees, and although she isn't very used to living in such a fancy bedroom, since she lives in a village and in a like a house with no floor and just not very clean, she's not really used to it, but she quickly does get used to it, and she also gets used to the good food there. She also makes friends with another talented artist in the edifice named Thomas. Kira's is instructed to take lessons from Annabella, who was a friend of her mother, Katrina, before Katrina died. And Annabella taught Katrina about all the dyes and techniques that there were to sewing. In order to complete the singer's robe, she needed to learn all this. She goes to Annabella's house every day to receive lessons from her and about the different dyes, where to find them, how to be creative with sewing, and all the other parts that are necessary for her to know in order to complete the singer's robe. Kira then asks Annabella about whether the beasts that everyone in the village fears are real, because she passed by the forest every day where people say beasts were to get to Annabella's house, and she didn't see any beasts, so she was wondering. Annabella explains to Kira that there are no beasts. She also tells Kira about the blue dye that no one seems to have, and that the only people that have the plants that are used for the dye are the ones over yonder. This obviously confuses Kira because she's never heard of people over yonder, only people in the village, but she shrugs it off and thinks nothing of it. When she goes back to the edifice, she starts to look for Jamison to ask him the questions about the beasts and the reality of them. However, when Jamison gets back, he tells Kira that Annabella had died. And this makes Kira very suspicious and makes her think that Jamison was involved in some way with Annabella's murder. One night, when Thomas and Kira are sleeping, Thomas is awoken to the sound of a kid crying. Thomas tells Kira about his experience and Kira's special cloth given to her by her mother when she was very young, and seems to have a spiritual connection with Kira, makes her feel worried about whoever was crying. They investigate and find a very small and young kid named Joe, who was a very talented singer but was being abused by Jamison, who was forcing him to sing and memorize the ruined song. Eventually, Kira tells Matt about the mysterious people yonder and how Annabella told her that they have blue dye then Matt disappears. I think Gathering Blue is a great book. One problem I have with the book is the beginning, because it's very complicated, the way that Lewis Lowry showed us about Kira's past, her lameness, how her mother, her father, who was a mysterious man, and about the introduction. It wasn't clearly conveyed, and you couldn't really understand it. You had to sit there and reread the passage a couple times to get it all in your head, because so much information was being thrown at you. It was also bland and boring. This issue is repeated some other times in the book. However, during the middle and the end, the storyline becomes more clearer and exciting, and it makes the whole experience of reading the beginning worth it. The book was easy to read, and the ending was sudden and exciting, which made it unpredictable. The ending for me is the greatest part of the book, because it's very unexpected and just has a good ending, you know what I mean? Like, people start feeling good, and it sounds like these characters have a hope for the future. During the beginning and the middle sections of the book, bits of scrambled information, stories, and backgrounds of characters are thrown at the reader and seems useless and confusing at first. But the ending helps bring all the things together for a great wrap-up, which is one of the reasons why I like the ending so much, because it's a shocker. One of my favorite quotes from the book was in chapter 1, and it was said by Kira. Fear was always a part of life for the people. Because of fear, they made shelter and found food and grew things. For the same reason, weapons and ammunition were stored waiting. When I fear things in life, like an upcoming important test or a soccer game that's really important for a tournament, it pushes me to focus and do my best. And it's a natural instinct for a bunch of people, because when you're in fear, you have stress isn't good for you, but when you're in fear, you are on high alert, and you react fastly, and it basically makes you be better at things that happen fast in the moment. And it's what drives people to make changes that are necessary. Lewis Lowry, who's the author of The Gathering Blue, uses almost a ironic or funny form of writing. When she is narrating, she uses proper, clear words that make her sound intelligent and really convey her message. But when she is talking between the characters like Kira and Matt or Thomas, right? Because they live in a village. Oh, well, the other characters in the village, not Thomas, but because they live in a village, they talk in they don't talk with good grammar, they don't use proper wording, they don't use intelligent words, and they do weird things that us people wouldn't do. So when she changes from dialogue to narration, it's kind of makes this weird feeling that a lesson, a story that's not so important, is being told in an important way, right? And by doing this dialogue thing, it really makes the story feel authentic and more real, and it really adds to the overall enjoyance of reading this book. I recommend this book to the students in middle school, especially for those who enjoy stories with adventure in them and mystery. I rate this book an outstanding 4 out of 5 stars. The book was very exciting, and the characters had unique personalities, but the book was bland near the beginning and included lots of unnecessary information. The book is a sequel to The Giver, according to Lewis Lowry, and she also wrote that book. However, the stories in both books have no relationships to each other, and it's impossible to tell the books are part of the same series without someone telling you. This upsets lots of people. Lewis Lowry made The Giver as one of her first books, and it was one of her most popular books. She won awards for it. Many people liked the ending, the cliffhanger at the end, and they're very hyped when she announced that she was making a sequel. But when people found out that the sequel wasn't in any way, shape, or form related, they got upset. One person on Amazon wrote that, before I started reading The Gathering Blue, I learned that it did not, however, follow Jonas, nor was it based on his community that he lived in. So I approached the story as saddened, but with the knowledge and understanding that it was to be a completely different story. So many are upset that the two books weren't similar at all, and that cliffhanger at the end of the first one was never answered. Because the first book was just so great. Anyways, that's it. Thank you. Mrs. Wood, I'm sorry if I stuttered or anything, or if you heard my dad yelling in the background. Anyways, peace out.